This is CBC Vancouver News.
BC's toxic drug crisis claims more lives.
We lost 315 people in downtown East Side, but we lost almost 2,000 people elsewhere in BC, and some of our smallest communities have the highest rate of death.
Including 2 rare deaths at an overdose prevention site. Also, rising incidents of hate during the pandemic.
I want to see funding, I want to see resources, I want to see action invested to our community-led initiative.
The painful findings and the efforts to fight back. And new legislation to close the gender pay gap.
Discriminating based on gender is not legal in British Columbia.
And why advocates are questioning whether it goes far enough. Good evening, I'm Michelle Ghoussoub. Thanks for joining us. Dan is on assignment this week. The deadly toll of the toxic drug crisis in this province has not slowed. It killed almost 7 people every day in January. The latest coroner's report found 211 toxic drug deaths in the first month of this year. It's the second deadliest January in the past decade, only behind last year when 216 people were killed. And of those who died, 77% were men. The majority of the deaths were in the Vancouver Coastal Health and Fraser Health regions. And in a rare instance, 2 of the people killed by poison drugs died at an overdose prevention site. Angela Sterrett has more on the calls to try to save more lives.
The tragic part of the whole thing is that these deaths could have been prevented.
Guy Felicella has been in recovery for almost 10 years. He says he was brought back to life 6 times.
You lose words of sadness for people and families and communities across the province. It's just truly heartbreaking and ongoing, and it'll continue to go this way until we actually, compete with the illicit drug supply.
We are clearly still in the midst of this crisis.
Chief Coroner Elisa Lapointe says if things don't change drastically, BC's on track to lose another 2,300 people across the province.
We lost 315 people in downtown East Side, but we lost almost 2,000 people elsewhere in BC.
Lapointe says fentanyl remains the main driver of the crisis, found in up to 85% of all deaths. And for the first time, 2 people died at an overdose prevention site, one in 2022 and one in 2023.
When all of the tens of thousands of visits to overdose prevention sites that we've seen in the province, we've now experienced 2 deaths. And I think it's probably it's more surprising that we haven't seen more given the toxicity of the supply. But I think it really speaks to how valuable those services are.
Apart from Vancouver, Terrace, Merritt, Hope and Prince George have the highest rates of deaths in terms of health authorities. And those dying are not just people considered vulnerable.
More than half of these deaths are occurring in private residences. They're occurring all around the province.
In 2022, 83% of toxic drug deaths occurred indoors, 55% in private residences, while 15% happened outside in vehicles, sidewalks, streets, and parks. As for any change,
I think that the quickest thing that we can do to start reducing deaths tomorrow is to provide a regulated alternative to a very volatile and unpredictable drug supply. That alone will continue to be insufficient until we invest in other strategies like treatment and like upstream prevention.
The province is still investigating the 2 deaths in the supervised consumption sites. Angela Sterrett, CBC News, Vancouver.
The BC government is rolling out hundreds of millions of dollars to boost the food bank system and agricultural production as more people ask for help. Premier David Eby says $200 million will go towards adding commercial coolers at food banks and improve overall food production and access. Eby says the money will give growers a chance to expand their businesses and allow for more BC-produced food to be eaten here. Parts of the money will also be used to fund climate preparedness plans.
For many people, and myself included, we're not going to forget those images of roads washed out and stranded farm animals and farms underwater. What those disasters did was essentially cut off the movement of people and goods between BC's coast and the rest of the country.
The funding is part of the province's plan to spend BC's massive surplus, estimated last fall at almost $6 billion. We've seen the videos and heard the first-hand accounts. Now, a new report from BC's Human Rights Commission has confirmed a disturbing rise in hate and discrimination during the pandemic. And the commissioner says the government's response was ineffective. Susanna De Silva has more on those targeted and what's being done to fight back.
Trixie Ling says that moment 3 years ago when a man called her racial slurs and spat on her was life-changing.
That really woke me up. I think that was the catalyst for me to be really angry and to not be silent, to talk about it. They started sharing, this is what...
It motivated her to start a charity helping immigrant women.
I want to see funding, I want to see resources, I want to see action invested to our community-led initiative.
Ling's was one of hundreds of hate crimes reported to police during the pandemic, believed to be a fraction of the crimes that actually occurred.
Overall, hate incidents reported to the police have increased increased 118%.
Hate of all kinds went up across the country, with BC seeing some of the most dramatic increases, including a sharp rise of anti-Asian hate, up 482%.
While hate is not new, the pandemic marks a period in our collective experience that's been filled with fear, mistrust, division, and hate.
The report calls on the provincial government to create a more coordinated response, the police and courts to do more in terms of prosecutions, and for more education in schools.
Ever met a rabbi before? Wow, that's okay. I'm it.
As the report was released, a group called The Other People, representing several ethnic and religious backgrounds, was in a Vancouver high school. The man behind the group says the report didn't go far enough.
Racism is not going to be dealt with words, slogans, or posters. We need to have specifics as to how to break down, which is why we're here, because we want the students to meet a Muslim, to meet a Sikh, a Jew, a black individual, and so on, face to face.
It was a message that resonated.
Just really learning to take the time to educate ourselves and to call people out and not be afraid to call people out, make a stand.
And that is the only way advocates say change is going to happen. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
The BC government has introduced new legislation requiring employers to be transparent about pay. The province says the change is the first phase towards pay equity legislation. But as Mira Baines reports, some advocates say the bill lacks the power to truly level the playing field for women in the workplace.
I know that people are concerned about whether or not there are teeth.
Kelly Padden, Parliamentary Secretary for Gender Equity, says as of November 1st, all employers will be required to include salary or wage ranges on job ads. She says the gender pay gap in BC has men making 17% more than women. Under the legislation, employers won't be able to ask employees for their pay history or punish workers who talk about their pay with others.
Discriminating based on gender is not legal in British Columbia. Highlighting the information that would potentially demonstrate that or demonstrate areas of opportunity to improve is critical.
Some fear the system of transparency puts the onus on women to push for equal pay and suffer potential repercussions. Advocates point out employees have to fight for higher wages by filing a claim with the BC Human Rights Tribunal. This economist says the law should go further and ensure employers provide equal pay.
Do it in the right order. This is not the first step. The right order is to have a way for people to be able to do something with the information, which is what pay equity would do.
Gender equity legislation was briefly enacted in BC in 2001, but was later rolled back by the BC Liberals. The party tried to introduce their own gender equity bill 6 times since. Each one failed. Now the party says a mechanism is needed to be in place for accountability.
Penalties and fines that could be used, but there are also just a centralized system where you can actually have all of those listings of who's doing well and who has yet to meet the standards.
Employers will be required to publicly post reports on their gender pay gap in a phased process according to workplace size. Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
The province's move to protect people, especially minors, from having their intimate images shared online is being applauded by some childhood psychologists, including one high school counselor who spoke with CBC Radio's The Early Edition. Daniel Lynn says while the proposed legislation offers better recourse for anyone who's had their image shared without their permission, young victims often face complicated challenges.
It's about the guilt, the shame, the acceptance that they're going to feel, or even the rejection amongst their peers. And they believe it's the biggest mistake that they've made in life.
You can hear more from Lynn's interview on The Early Edition by using the CBC Listen app. The City of Surrey has now appointed a new ethics commissioner. Lawyer Peter Johnson will take on the independent role. Johnson previously served as the city's interim ethics commissioner after it was introduced in 2020. The role includes investigating complaints and making disciplinary recommendations to council. Tonight, teams of volunteers are hitting the streets across Metro Vancouver as part of the 2023 homeless count. It's the first count in 3 years after pandemic cancellations. And our municipal affairs reporter Justin McElroy joins us now with more. Justin, what can we expect from this year's count?
Well, bluntly, Michelle, we can expect the numbers to go up because, of course, 3 years ago when it was done, it was right before the pandemic. And, of course, we've heard time and time again and seen on the streets a rise in homelessness since. Here is a chart just to give people a sense of where we're working on and the baseline. And you can see in 2020, it was about 2,000 people in the city of Vancouver that the count identified as homeless. Just over 1,500 of those sheltered homeless, so they'd often live in different buildings, 500 of those on the street itself. And it's going to be interesting to see over the next 2 days when the count happens, not just in Vancouver, but in plenty of different municipalities, exactly where that number has gone to and what that means for policy implications going forward.
And from a policy standpoint, why is this count so important?
Well, it does inform what different municipalities do. It also informs how voters across the region perceive the issue and what needs to be done, particularly when it comes to exactly whether each municipality has the right amount of resources for the issues in their community. And I'll take a look at this chart, which exemplifies part of the discussion that happens a lot in Metro Vancouver. And you can see here's the number of emergency homeless units in every municipality, and Vancouver has much, much more than everywhere else. But those other municipalities do have homeless people in their communities as well. So one Vancouver councillor says it's important when we get this new data to prove and show just how important it is for all municipalities to carry their fair share of the load.
We know the problem is severe. We know the urgent need for this housing and that it needs to be both in Vancouver and across the whole region. We need to continue to do more in Vancouver, and we need local governments around the region to step up and do more as well.
So we'll get the data from this count in about 3 months' time. Data is always good. It can help people. The question is what you do with it next.
All right, our Justin McElroy reporting tonight. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Michelle.
Transit service in parts of the Fraser Valley will once again be unavailable later this week during job action.
Drivers are hopeful that we're going to get a fair deal at the end of this, and they're excited to finally be seeing something get done. We've been without a contract for 3 years now, so it's a long time coming to start getting something done.
Between Thursday and Saturday, there will be no service in Agassiz, Harrison, the Central Fraser Valley, Chilliwack, and Hope, but Handy Dart will still run. Job action began in February with drivers refusing to collect fares to demand back higher wages, a pension plan, and better working conditions. The union is hoping to reach an agreement with U.S.-based First Transit, which is contracted by BC Transit to provide the service in the region. Last week, bus service was halted for 2 days.
We're net negative 1,500 rooms since the Olympics.
Well, Vancouver's tourism board is worried the hotel supply crunch could prevent the city from hosting future events. That story coming up. Thanks for staying with us on our commercial-free live stream. When PEI, a newly opened outdoor ice rink, has many people excited, and CBC reporter Stacey Janzer stopped by to meet the skaters, some of whom were trying it out for the first time.
We heard that there's a free skating rink, and I haven't tried it before yet, so we just want to enjoy it.
I love going on the ice with all my friends.
Actually, this is my first time skating, so I'm trying to practice all around here, and it's really nice that it's for free, and we can just go here and skate all day.
In the Philippines, we only have skating rinks in the malls, so seeing here at the park, it's very nice. At least they can practice skating. This is our first winter in PEI, so we're just, enjoying every bit of it. So the kids are having fun. They just started learning to skate.
If someone's starting out fresh on the ice, what's something that they should know to do?
Bend your knees to keep your balance. Always wear a helmet when you're just starting.
I'm still trying to practice my balance and just doing all of it all over again. So just to, get my balance, get my form.
How'd the first time go?
It was not as easy as it looks. It's really hard, so I need more practice.
A new report suggests Vancouver doesn't have enough hotel rooms to keep up with demand, and it costs BC billions in missed revenue. The city's tourism board fears a supply crunch could prevent Vancouver from hosting future events like sports and conferences. And as John Hernandez reports, City Council vows to buck the trend.
Vancouver is no stranger to hosting big international events, but visitors have fewer options when it comes to booking a hotel room than they did in 2010.
We're net negative 1,500 rooms since the Olympics.
A Destination Vancouver analysis of hotel rooms in the region says demand during peak tourism season is poised to outstrip supply by 2026, and the result could be costly.
If we continue on the current path that we are right now, lack of hotel rooms will cost us about $30 billion in direct and indirect impact up to 2050.
The tourism board says the pandemic put even more strain on supply, with several hotels being transformed into supportive housing. Now the hope is to build up capacity, especially with international conferences and major events like the 2026 FIFA World Cup just around the corner.
Without accommodations, People can't stay, they can't spend. And if that doesn't happen, then that business goes somewhere else.
City Council admits building up supply will take time, but believes a revitalized Granville Entertainment District could be part of the solution.
We recognize the dire shortage of hotel rooms, and so Council has directed staff to receive and accept applications for new hotels now, while that planning process is happening.
The city's Broadway plan has also opened up the door for more hotels along the corridor, with hopes that they could take pressure off the use of Airbnbs.
What you want to do is keep that local housing stock for locals in a very tight market. You don't want to see people renting it out for Airbnb.
As it stands, about 1,100 hotel rooms are in the city's development pipeline, but there's no guarantees they'll be ready for the international crowds expected in 2026. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
After a terrifying kidnapping in Mexico, 2 Americans are back home, but 2 others are confirmed dead. And as Chris Reyes reports, it's believed they were caught up in a case of mistaken identity involving Mexico's notoriously violent drug trade.
They went into Mexico as a group of 4 friends. Only 2 have come home alive, escorted across the border by Mexican ambulance and army vehicles, one with serious injuries. This video appearing to show the violent moment when it all went wrong in a part of Mexico dominated by warring factions of a powerful drug cartel. Mexican authorities say the Americans were caught in a shootout, then kidnapped late last week, launching an extensive days-long rescue effort that ended today, when Mexico's president confirmed the Americans were found, 2 of them dead. Dashing hopes of this family member, who up until this morning wrote on Facebook she was keeping the faith that her brother was still alive. She wrote in a GoFundMe post that the 4 friends were going to Mexico for a tummy tuck when they were caught in the crossfire.
We want to see accountability for the violence that has been inflicted on these Americans that tragically led to the death of 2 of them.
U.S. officials want more information on exactly what happened.
I've been briefed by the FBI, which is working with Mexican authorities, and senior department officials are working closely with our counterparts at the State Department.
The kidnapping happened in the city of Matamoros, right across the border from Texas. Both the U.S. and Canada have high-risk travel advisories against going to that region. Ottawa warning citizens that clashes between cartels and gangs are common. Families of the victims have not come forward to share details.
U.S. officials are in touch with the families of the individuals, but again, we will respect their privacy regarding our conversations with them.
The 2 Americans who died are still in Mexico, where authorities say their bodies will be returned after their investigation. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
You're looking at a live shot of downtown Vancouver. Amy Bell will have your full forecast next.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed it's going to court.
That's Marty McSorley's reaction to the news he now faces a criminal charge of assault with a weapon.
I don't really know if anybody knows right now how much I've already lost, in a sense of just not having the right to play.
The announcement was made in Victoria this afternoon.
The same standard was applied here as we apply in any other case. That being, first, is there a substantial likelihood of conviction? And having reviewed the evidence, we agree that there is. At that stage, we move to the second part of the test, which is the public interest. Is it in the public interest to prosecute? And again, Crown Counsel is of the view that yes, it is in the public interest.
It was February 21st. With just seconds left in the game between Boston and Vancouver, McSorley took his stick to the temple of the Canucks' Donald Brashear. Brashear fell to the ice, bleeding and unconscious. Doctors diagnosed him with a serious concussion.
I just live day by day, and I'm not allowed to work out for the first 2 weeks. No exercise at all.
McSorley has apologized, and the NHL has suspended him for the rest of the season, including the playoffs. It's widely expected this will put an end to the 36-year-old hockey veteran's career. The NHL has issued a written statement. Chief Legal Officer Bill Daly said, "We believe the league dealt with the matter quickly, decisively, and appropriately, and did not feel that any further action was either warranted or necessary. We therefore would have preferred that the Crown not take this action. Having said that, the Vancouver authorities have made their decision, and we remain committed to offering our full cooperation in any way we can."
And we all hope that that was the end of it. You know, I just hope it works out for Marty, because he really is a great guy, and he's done a lot for hockey.
Reaction on the street is mixed.
No, I'm a hockey player. What happens on the ice stays on the ice, I think.
I think the court should find the guy, you know, and then make him face what he's done, you know, because if I walked up the street and hit him with a stick, you better believe that I'm going to go to jail for it, right? So if I could go to jail for it, so should he.
This is not the first time the league has suspended McSorley, but it is the first time he's faced criminal charges. He's expected to make his first appearance in Vancouver Provincial Court April 4th. Bonnie Fox, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 30th, join Angela Starrett at the Alumni UBC webinar on Indigenous youth, nurturing the next generation. Hear from 3 Indigenous speakers who mentor Indigenous youth to share knowledge in their communities and beyond. Register at alumni.ubc.ca and never miss an episode of your favorite CBC drama or comedy with the free CBC Gem app. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
And Amy Bell joins us now for a look at the forecast. Amy, beautiful, beautiful day out there. Is this going to stick around?
For a couple days. We'll sort of see that same pattern repeated. So as we saw early this morning, if you're up early enough, we did have a few slight showers, and then it did clear out. It's all this system that's just sitting across the border, just sort of passing by us, and that's just dripping down or dropping down and giving us that overcast sky sort of in the overnight, early morning hours with a bit of precipitation mixed in, but then clearing out for the afternoon. So we're actually looking fairly good across most of the province. We do have a snowfall warning up for the central coast, the south coast, the central coast. So we could see 5 to 10 centimeters of snow overnight and in through tomorrow morning before it starts to clear off there. But for the most part, everything is quite settled for the province. We will deal with this next system, though, making its way towards us for the weekend. But for tomorrow, as I mentioned, we'll just see overnight cloud and early showers, a chance of some flurries in some areas. So we'll see it dissipating, and then we'll wait for that next system to arrive. Once it does on the weekend, we're going to see those temperatures coming down quite a bit and the risk of snow inland. And then for us in Metro Vancouver, more showers throughout the weekend and into early next week. So we'll take what we can get. We'll take the sunshine and those slightly warmer temperatures for the next couple of days. In Worcester Village, you'll have a mix of snow and showers in the village with some sunny breaks, and much the same. These showers will be early in the morning for the Vancouver Island. Pretty socked in, though, for Tofino tomorrow, so you will be dealing with showers, but looking good. Those showers will arrive a little earlier tomorrow afternoon for the Fraser Valley, and then taking a look for the rest of the province. As I mentioned, actually looking fairly bright and settled. Not the warmest, though, just 3 degrees for Williams Lake, -3 in Prince George, and -2 up in Dease Lake. Taking a look at our 5-day forecast, as I said, soak up the sun while you can. Those warmer temperatures, we get up to 11 on Thursday and then cutting it down to 5 with rain on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay, soak up the sun while you can.
Before you get soaked, yeah.
Good advice. Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
And that is your late news for this Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. For news anytime, visit our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. And I'll be back tomorrow with your late local news. Good night.